You know, all that yada yada stuff. Hey, Finn. Finn also wants to take a look at the books too. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rochelle, and I wanted to make a little video going and talking about all sorts of things that are witchy, like books, movies, TV shows, that can help you kind of keep a hold of the witchy season if you're not quite ready to let it go just yet. So for those of you that wait for October to go and watch Practical Magic, this might be the video for you. So personally, I watch Practical Magic any time of year. It's definitely one of my all-time favorite movies. My dad was actually the one that introduced me to it. And so I've been wanting to put this video together, especially before I have to pack up a lot of my books and things for the big move that's going to be coming up quite soon. So with that being said, I'm going to start out with the books that I have read. Some of them are going to be kind of close. They're going to be honorable mentions. And then others are, of course, going to be more witchy. And then I'll show you the books that are on more of my TBR, then mention some games, movies, and TV shows that you can also watch as well or play. First up is The Honey Witch. I actually read this book a few months ago and I loved it so much. It definitely had a lot of cozy vibes, but also a lot of heartbreak and sadness. There were also some darker tones, especially at the end. So this book has kind of been compared to Bridgerton, and in some aspects I can kind of see that, but it wasn't something I necessarily vibed with 100%, only with the fact that they kind of were in an older time where women were supposed to be proper and you were supposed to look for your husband and, you know, all that yada yada stuff. The main character, Marigold, which I mean, that is such a beautiful name. Marigold is kind of feeling like the oddball and her family doesn't really quite fit in and doesn't really want to do what her own mother is asking of her to do. And then suddenly her grandmother shows up and says that she can no longer be the Honey Witch and keep protection over this island and is asking Marigold to come with her. However, she will have to go and give up the idea of ever falling in love. And since Marigold is like, well, I don't really have anyone that's likely to be a good candidate for any of that, so sure, why not? And so she goes there and her grandmother goes and teaches her all the honey magic that is there, how to go and take care of the apiary, and some of the different spirits that she can go and see. And it is truly beautiful. I truly love this book, a lot of the whimsy aspects of it. And I personally was someone that was very close to my grandmother when she was still alive. So this book definitely got a lot of those heartstrings that make me remember my grandmother and a lot of the things that I hold dear about her. So yeah, this was really good. There also was a love interest that does end up popping up in the book, but I don't want to go too much into that. I'd rather you experience that for yourself, but I did really enjoy this book and would highly recommend it. Then I have the Invocations by Krystal Sutherland. I absolutely love my copy of this book. I think it is so stunning. It is so dark and morbid looking, like looking at the end pages. Yeah, some of the drawings that are in this way, and then, I mean, just stunning and creepy, and I love it. But with the Invocations by Krystal Sutherland, it basically surrounds 3 girls, and each one of them has a different reason for being involved in magic. One girl lost her sister, another one is cursed, and is basically losing her ability to live her normal life because of the curses that she has. And then the other witch goes and creates these invocations for women to help protect them from people in their life that are trying to do them harm. And it turns out that a lot of people that have these invocations made by this specific girl are getting offed for whatever reason. And so all of these girls end up going and working together to figure out what the heck is going on. This was really good, but I also wasn't expecting a lot of the darker tones that were in there. And there were a little bit of pieces of limb difference representation as well in parts of the book. So I'll just leave it there, and if you're interested in picking it up, I would highly recommend this one as well. And then the next one I kind of recommend loosely. So it feels weird going and talking about practical magic aspects without actually going and mentioning the practical magic book. So this is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, and I might have to go and actually read this again. I feel like I was a little bit biased the first time I read it, and so it would be good for me to go and pick this one up and just see if my thoughts have changed with this one. But I will go and give this brief spoiler or brief bit of information that if you are going into this book and thinking that it will be like the practical magic movie that a lot of us hold dear to our hearts, this is not it. It is vastly different. There are some aspects that are vaguely similar, but a lot of the story is very different. And personally, I prefer the magic and whimsiness of the movie over the book. And I feel like I have heard a lot of similar things where many people just aren't really in love with the book as much as they were in love with the movie as well. So just letting you know that little piece if you do end up going and picking this one up. However, I do have a few of the other books in the series. So I have The Rules of Magic as well as Magic Lessons. And these do go and follow the Owens family, but at different periods, different time periods of their lives. And I have heard that a lot of people have enjoyed the other books over the Practical Magic book. So I haven't read these ones yet, but I am intrigued to go and pick them up and see if my thoughts are different regarding these books versus the Practical Magic book. Okay, and then I have a few honorable mentions because they do carry some magic in them and do kind of give similar like witchy vibes and things like that. So I'm gonna go and mention a few of those books as well. And this one, the cover is probably gonna go and surprise you because I normally don't have books like this on my channel. However, this is one that I really did love when I was younger and do plan on reading this again in the future. So this one is Goddess of Spring by PC Cast. I absolutely do love this series. So with these books, basically they cover different goddesses. There's one that's like Aphrodite. There's also one that is Troy related, and then Artemis and Apollo. So if you do like Greek mythology and the goddesses and things like that, it might be a series that you're interested in picking up. With this one, it deals with Persephone and Hades. And with these books, one thing that I do really love about this series, and especially with this author as well as her daughter, is that they go and write books that go and dive into the power of women and remind them how amazing and powerful they are. We all know that I usually end my videos by saying you are worthy and capable of amazing things, and it's because I want all of us to remember that we are amazing just as we are, and sometimes it's easy to go and lose touch of those things. So with this one, we go and follow the main character, Lena, and she works in a bakery, and unfortunately it's not really doing well. It's kind of hitting a low point, and so she needs to do something fast to go and help her business. And she comes across this recipe that is kind of a little bit mystical and witchy, and she's not quite sure, like, is this gonna work? Well, I have no other options, I might as well try. And so she kind of does this little spell with this baked good and ends up going and summoning Demeter, who goes and proposes this plan for her that she goes and switches places with Persephone, and Persephone will take her place in the bakery and help bring it into this thriving business while she's in Persephone's place in the underworld. It definitely was very interesting. I truthfully loved this book and just the different aspect it had on the whole Hades and Persephone love story. And like I said, I do really love this series and just how it reminds women of the goddesses that they are. And that might hit for some of you and it might not, but personally for myself, I did really enjoy those aspects. There is spice in this series, so just as a heads up, be aware of those pieces, but I do highly recommend it. It was a really good story, and I probably will be rereading this series again at some point in my channel. Then I've also talked about this book in the past. It is Poison Princess: The Arcana Chronicles by Krystal Cole. This is one of my favorite series that I have been putting off forever to actually finish, so I will be doing a reread at some point. But with this one, it does surround the tarot cards, and so because of that, I feel like it would fit in with the witchiness aspect for book recommendations in this video. So with this story, we are following Evangeline, who is recently coming back from being in a mental health ward because of these visions that she's been getting. And her mom was kind of afraid of this stuff, wasn't really believing her daughter and so sent her away. Evangeline is just coming back and she's trying to get back into the feel of her old life and getting a little bit of normality. However, she's still seeing some of these visions that are showing the end of the world, and there's also this Bayou boy that shows up that is also causing trouble as well, and all she wants is a normal life. However, there is this thing called the Flash that ends up happening, and it was exactly like Evangeline was seeing and like she was predicting. However, it's a little bit more deeper than that. In some aspects, this book is a little bit like the Hunger Games in a way, where each one of these characters, they are a tarot card or the major arcana, and each one of them has certain powers and things like that, but they are supposed to go and fight these other arcana characters, and they end up going and getting some of their symbols, I guess. And whoever ends up going and offing all the other characters ends up winning in the end and gets to go and live until the next flash happens. So that's kind of where the Hunger Game aspects are. Like the goal is basically to go and win. And it is very apocalyptic and has a lot of interesting aspects in it. I do remember I reread this book, I believe, at the beginning of the year or before the beginning of the year, and there were a few things that were a little bit frustrating, but I will go and say that it does get better. It's just a bit of character building that is frustrating, but kind of has to be done for the rest of the story to make sense. So yeah, if you're interested in picking this one up, I would highly recommend it as well. Next, we're going to go into the books that I have on my TBR and I haven't quite read just yet. And one of them, I feel like I need to go and mention Grimoire Girl by Hilary Burton Morgan. I actually haven't read this one just yet, but I read her Rural Diaries book, and I'm very intrigued and interested to listen to this one. I do really love Hilary Burton Morgan. She is married to Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and they have this farm together in this small town, I believe in New York, if I'm not mistaken. And it's so interesting kind of going and hearing about their lives and how down to earth they are. But I love the witchy aspects that Hilary kind of goes and has in her life. Like in her Rural Diaries book, she actually has this recipe for dandelion wine that I have not tried out yet because, you know, pesticides and things like that with dandelions that might get sprayed. I'm just a little bit on the fence, but it is something I do want to try. I've had dandelion tea and it is really good. But anyway, when she came out with this book, it was definitely one that I instantly added to my list. And I think, yeah, I do actually have a signature in this one as well, which is so cool. But I feel like this one should also be recommended. This is kind of her own grimoire that she went and wrote. And like I said, I haven't went and read it yet, but it is something that I'm very excited to take a look at. Next, I have The Wild Ones by Nafisa Assad. So with this one, it basically says, we are the wild ones and we will not be silenced. So we are the girls who tasted the worst this world can offer. And with this, it seems like there's this guy that ends up going and kind of saving these women that are in very difficult situations. But suddenly this person, he is also threatened and he's at risk. And these women have to kind of go and band, bless you, Finn. They have to go and band together in hopes to save him to not go back to the place that they were before. And I just think this book is truly so beautiful and stunning. I had never heard of this one before, but I saw it when I was browsing through books, and I did really go and buy this because of the cover. I just loved all the diversity of the different women on the cover and how different they all looked. I thought it was absolutely beautiful, and I do want to read this book at some time soon. Then I have The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin, and I've actually had this one on my TBR for quite some time. I believe I picked it up kind of before my period where I stopped reading books. So with this one, it seems like witches are responsible for maintaining the climate, but their control is starting to falter, and the atmosphere is becoming more erratic. There's storms and it's more destructive. And Clara is the one that's magic is tied to every season, and not all witches have, I guess, the capability to be responsible for all the seasons and have the magic for all of them. But she also doesn't seem to really want anything to do with her power as well. So I'm definitely intrigued in this. I feel like sometimes I have a love-hate relationship when it comes to a main character that doesn't like their magic. I don't know if it's a biased thing, but it's just like, if I had magic, I would 100% be happy to have it and use it, and would be interested in learning how to control it on all of those things. So yeah, I always have a love-hate relationship with that because I think having magic would be really cool. Yes, there would be a lot of pros and cons, but I would actually be interested in wanting to learn how to use it and use it for good and all that type of stuff. And then I have The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brienne Randall. And I remember I heard about this one through TikTok back when I first downloaded it. And I was like, this book looks really pretty. I mean, I love obviously the teacup on here, but it also was kind of sold to go and be for fans of practical magic and Gilmore Girls. The Unfortunate Side of Heartbreak and Magic is a charming debut novel that explores the shields we build around our hearts to retain our own magic. And that just sounded so interesting to me. And I have heard pretty good things about this one as well. So hopefully I will get to go and pick this one up this year. And then I have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And this one has been out for a while as well. I was never able to go and pick it up when everyone was really raving about this book, but I know a lot of people have talked about it and mentioned reading it. But it says it's a warm and uplifting novel about an isolated witch whose opportunity to embrace a quirky new family and a new love changes the course of her life. And yeah, I think this sounds like it would be a really fun and cozy read. So hopefully maybe when it gets a little bit colder outside, I will bundle up with a blanket and go and read this book. And then I have In the Shadow Garden by Liz Parker. This one I think I saw on Desi's channel, and it was an instant add to my cart because I thought the cover was so beautiful. I just love the arrangement of the colors and the flowers on it. And it says this one is richly atmospheric and luminous debut about 3 generations of women whose magic is as much a part of life as love, death, and the rich dark earth beneath their feet. I just think this sounds like a really cozy read as well. And so when I'm in that mood for extra coziness, I will definitely be picking up a lot of these books that I'm mentioning. So this one is Witchful Thinking by Celestine Martin, A Match Made in Magic. So it says, love is the trickiest spell of all. Lucinda Carraway loves living in Freya Grove. That's such a pretty name. The mystic seaside town where charms, hexes, and magical beings of all kinds are the norm. She spends her days teaching high school history and her nights reading tea leaves and tending to her conjurer garden. It's a good life, but she can't stop wishing for more. This also sounds like a very cozy read as well. And so, like I said, when I'm in the mood for extra coziness, I will definitely be adding this book to my list. And then I have Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. Believing in yourself is its own kind of magic. I believe I saw this book originally in Waterstones on the website, and it had a different cover, but truthfully, I think I love this one more. This is just gorgeous, and I feel like it's just very much my vibe. Like, you know, the bookshelves on the side, the huge window, and then reading a book and having a cat right next to you. This is also my favorite color scheme to go and wear, like a a mustard yellow sweater and jeans, and then of course having one of my fur babies next to me. So it kind of feels like it's me in the cover of a book, which is kind of fun to think of. But it says, in the spellbinding, warm, and cozy debut novel, a burned out witch will need to turn to her friends and trust herself to find the magic in her own life again. I love the idea of this. It definitely seems like very relatable, especially for some of us that get burnt out, especially with seasonal depression and everything like that. So this might be a good book to go and read when we're all feeling that type of funk. I'm also realizing that a lot of these books that I've picked up recently and I've showed you in this TBR list are debut novels, which is kind of cool. I love going and reading debut novels, and especially people that are going and releasing their books and might be smaller authors. I just think it's so much fun to go and read their works and going and talking about it versus a lot of the books that we always hear mentioned from some of the popular authors. I think everyone deserves to have their books discussed, no matter how popular they are. And then I have The Bone Witch by Rin Chupico. And I've read one of her other books. I believe it was called The Sacrifice, but I think I've already packed it up. and can't go and hold it up at the moment, but this is a Filipino author and was actually one of the first books that I picked up by her but haven't read, which I think is an absolute crime. And it says, "Let me be clear, I never intended to raise my brother from his grave." This one I feel like I haven't heard talked about too much, so I'm very interested to go and dive into this book and see what it's all about. I want to say there's at least 3 books in the series, so if I do enjoy this, I will 100% be getting the other ones. The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and I feel like this one has been mentioned so many times on various booktube channels. I have talked about this one before and how I've tried to have it on some of my TBRs for the month, and it just unfortunately hasn't happened, but I really do want to read this one, and I have seen some discussions about the next book that is coming out, which I believe is like a greenhouse. So I'm so ready to dive into this book, and I'm really hoping it will happen soon because, oh my goodness gracious, it is so beautiful, and I'll have to insert a picture of what the next book looks like. And I also have a friend too that has been telling me I need to read this book ASAP. So I will try to listen to you and read it soon. Last book for recommendations I have is In the Company of Witches by Aura Lee Wallace, and it's an Evan Fall Witches B&B mystery. This one definitely screams cozy as well. I believe Katie is reading. Hopefully that's her name. I just woke up not too long ago, so my brain is also trying to wake up and function a little bit, but I believe she read this one and really loved it, loved all the cozy vibes. It is like one of those books that just like fits perfectly in my hand as well. And I do think I will probably pick this up once it gets more wintry outside, because I feel like I really want to read magic stuff, but also coziness during that time as well. So then moving on to TV shows and movies, of course I have to go and talk about Practical Magic. It is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of those movies that as soon as you hear the opening music, you instantly know what movie you're watching and the vibes that you are about to get. It has Sandra Bullock in it and Nicole Kidman, and they both do such an amazing job going and playing the roles of Sally and Jillian. Sally is one that is not too fond of her magic and powers anymore, even though she is such a strong witch, and it's because anyone that the Owens women fall in love with is destined to die. And Sally unfortunately has an awful experience with that, and so she has said she will never use her magic. She does not want her daughters to use their magic or anything like that. And it's such a good movie. I love it so much. There's so many iconic scenes and moments like Midnight Margaritas. So if you haven't watched this movie yet, I would highly suggest you do because it is so good. If you don't want to read the book, then I say definitely read the movie. Definitely read the movie, definitely watch the movie. And then some classics I have to go and talk about would be The Craft. This is an older movie and it is so good. Basically, this girl, she ends up going to this new town and ends up going and meeting 3 women that claim to be witches, but they are missing their 4th to be able to harness their magic and do a lot of the things that they've been practicing and working so hard to get to. And it turns out that this girl's mother was actually a witch too, which is why her magic is so strong. But unfortunately, even though there's all these really great things of being a witch, one person in the group isn't necessarily using those powers for good, and it kind of goes downhill from there. And normally I don't go and talk about like sequels or additional movies that come out, especially if they're follow-ups to older classic movies, but I feel like I really need to go and mention the newer Craft movie that came out. And this one I was so against, I was so upset about, and it wasn't until I think I was scrolling through Facebook or some social media platform that I saw a little snippet of this one scene, and I was like, okay, we need to pick up this movie. And basically that scene was this girl ends up going and getting her period in the classroom and ends up getting teased and bullied for it and ends up going and running into the bathroom. And these girls end up going and coming to her and offering friendship and support and just bringing forward this amazing sisterhood. So with this story as well, you're going and seeing the main character moving to this new town with her mother, and she's moving in with her mother's boyfriend and sons. And she's trying to make things work for her mother because she wants her mother to be happy. But of course, ends up going and having some not great moments and bullying situations, but finds these girls that are also looking further forth and ends up going and creating this amazing sisterhood with them. And I really did love a lot of aspects in this movie as well. So because of that, I would go and recommend it, even though it is following a classic. And then two TV shows that I will go and mention would of course be Charmed, and this will be the old one, the original one. I have not actually watched the remake of it at all, and I don't know if I ever will personally, but I've really been getting into going and rewatching the old Charm TV show. It is on Prime, so I believe it has all the seasons available, and I'm just loving the nostalgia of going and rewatching it and seeing the power of three. It is just so nice because personally, I was never able to watch the entire show when I was growing up. I'd only get to watch little episodes here and there when I was eating breakfast before going to school. So now I've been binge watching it and just loving every second of it. And then the next one is The Good Witch. This one takes place in a small town and it's very hallmarky, very cheesy, but also very feel good. There's this main character who is a witch, but she doesn't necessarily have the magic that you would see in Charmed or things like that. It's very subtle, but it's all very wholesome and helps the people in this small town. And I love the show so much. I remember I was kind of watching it when I was feeling very low and not too happy, and I looked forward to going and watching the next episode and just all the feel good energy that that show would bring me. I'm not quite sure where it is streaming now. I know it was on Netflix before, but then it got taken down. And then I think they had some episodes on Prime. So if I'm able to figure out where the show is currently, I will try to go and insert a note here or maybe down in the description below. And the last thing I want to go and talk about is cozy games. I am a gamer. I do love playing cozy games as well as creepy games, so I do have a few different recommendations that you can go and play. One of them is Wildflowers. This one is such a beautiful story. I have not quite finished it yet because I've been dragging it out as long as possible, not wanting it to end, even though I have heard that there's a lot of content after the end game, so it is worth still sticking through with the game. But basically, we follow Tara, who ends up going and moving in with her grandma, who isn't quite doing well and needs help on the farm. She grew up going and visiting her grandma when she was younger, but unfortunately her dad and grandmother had a falling out, and so after that she wasn't able to visit anymore. So this time around she's getting to go and visit with her grandma and see all the people throughout the town going and helping with them with different things, and then suddenly discovers that she is a witch and so is her grandma. So it is really sweet. It is a very fun game. I love a lot of different diversity aspects they have in it, especially when it comes to the food that's available in the game. I feel like you don't always see that with different culture food, but that is definitely present in this game and I love it so much. It's definitely one of those things where I want to recreate those foods, and maybe that's something I'll do when we move into our new house. And then I have the game Witchwood. And this is also another game that I haven't finished. I tend to get a little bit hyper fixated on one game and go really hard before switching out to something else. Oh my god, my cat is wanting to rub up against the tripod. But Witchwood has this beautiful art style that is just so much fun and is very cozy, even though the story itself might not seem cozy at times. But you go through these different scenes trying to help different people and unlock certain things to help you progress further in the story. And I definitely will have to get back to this game because the coziness, the art style, and everything like that just screams the fall slash winter time, and it's definitely the types of vibes that I want to stay in. Last game that I'm going to talk about is more so an honorable mention, and that would be Bloomtown. You might have seen me mention it a few times in some of my vlogs, and it's definitely a game that I'm a little bit obsessed with. It's a pixel style game, and basically the main character Emily and her brother Chester end up having to go and stay with their grandfather for the summer, and so they kind of have to make the most of it And I've seen some people go and complain about some of the dialogue where it seems like the dialogue is a lot older than it should be for the kiddos, but I think it adds like a certain sort of humor, especially as an adult that's playing this game. And it's so much fun. Basically, these kids end up going and making a contract with Lucifer to help slay these demons, and along the way they go to the underside. They have to fight demons but also end up having some of these demons as their guardians, and you can go and level them up, and there's these amazing songs that play during the battle scenes. I don't know why, but I'm having so much fun and I'm loving it so much, so I had to go and recommend it here because at least if anything it has some of those Halloween vibes, those creepy vibes and everything. Those are all my recommendations for the Witchy season, especially if you're wanting to still keep a hold of it and you're not ready to say goodbye just yet, since the month of October is pretty much over at this point when you're seeing this video. So if you're looking for a good book or movie, TV show, or even a cozy game, I hope that this video went and gave you some amazing suggestions. And if not, I hope you liked the cozy vibes, if anything. I'm gonna wrap it up here, and this will probably be one of the last videos that you go and see in this office because we are moving. So yeah, I'm excited for the future and what else I have to show y'all. But with that being said, I love you all, and I hope that you always remember that you're worthy and capable of amazing things. Bye, friends.